Hello, creators. How are you guys? Great to hang out with you again for another Video Creators podcast episode and live stream. These episodes go on SoundCloud, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify every Tuesday. And here we are hanging out live at youtube.com/video creators on Mondays. Every Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, we go live and we just talk about things that are happening in the online video space to help you guys just learn, what's going on in this space, what's changing, how can we stay on top of the game as YouTube creators and continue to reach people and change their lives with the content that we're making, while also growing sustainable businesses at the same time. So today is going to be a great conversation because it is something that I have been talking a lot about actually with people in private one-on-one consultations sessions. The question I get a lot, at least the last week, I think I did 3 or 4 sessions around the same question, which was, why do I have 500,000 subscribers, 1 million subscribers, 3 million subscribers, but I'm only getting 1,000 views per video, 2,000 views per video, or one case, someone was getting 20,000 views per video on average, but they're like, but I have millions of subscribers. Why? What's going on? And that is not something that is unique to just big creators with larger channels. I experienced that here at my channel, so I want to talk with you guys about and talk about what this means for you guys as creators and give you some of the same advice that I was giving people in consultation sessions last week about how do we keep people interested? How do we get them to care? How do we hold their attention so that they want to keep coming back and watching more and more videos? And it is a lot harder than maybe it sounds, because I know each of us, we think our content is awesome. Why wouldn't anyone want to watch every single video that I publish? But I think we've all seen that that's just not simply the case. So we're going to dive into that here with you guys today. I have 5 different kind of elements to talk through with you that make a big difference in this area. Those of you guys who are listening to this live here on the live stream, welcome. Laura is in the chat here, how to GOIST. And she will be taking your questions, and at the end here, we'll be talking about them. So if you're hanging out here live with us, we will definitely dive into your questions and talk more about this. But we'll dive into those here at the end. So then just leave those in the chat, and Laura's producing this. She'll grab your questions, and we'll dive into them here in a little bit. So this topic of how do we keep these viewers engaged? Why for long term, right? Not just like, hey, I got a new subscriber, great. But how do I get a new subscriber and then keep it so that they keep coming back and watching the next video and then the next video, and then like 3 months later and a year later, how do we keep their interest and keep them watching long term? And this is a really big topic. I much prefer to get into like a session and be able to actually look at someone's content and see like, here's where you're making the mistake, or here's where you're missing an opportunity, or here's what you're not doing that you should be doing, or whatever, and just be able to point those things out. So, but we're going to talk about it kind of on a high level generically here together, since that's kind of, where we're at. You're listening and watching this, and we're just going to make it general for a lot of you. And hopefully you'll get something out of this and be like, oh, that's the thing I'm missing. Or I didn't even think about how I need to do that in order to keep my viewers engaged long term. So this channel here, Video Creators, has a similar dynamic going on, and that there's a high turnover in the audience here. So when I when I talk about how do we do this, I'm talking to myself as well. I forget how many subscribers Video Creators has. What does it have? Like 400 something thousand, right? And there's always hundreds of new people subscribing every day, and tens of thousands of people watching, and there's, but I get like 5 to 10,000 views on a new video when I publish it. Sometimes less, sometimes more, but on average, it kind of comes around that. So why can I have over 400,000 subscribers, getting close to 500,000, and be getting those types of numbers on videos? And then why is it that we look at other people's channels and we're like, well, they have 500,000 subscribers and they're getting like 1 million views per video? What's going on there, right? And that was actually the case of one of the channels I worked with last week. Is they had almost 500,000 subscribers, and they were consistently getting 700 to 1 million views per video. So, the opposite can be same here too. So well, right up front though, I think we can kind of all agree, well, maybe not, but hopefully you will, that every channel performs differently, right? So we always compare ourselves to channels that are doing better than us. Few of us, I think, compare ourselves to channels that are doing worse than us and be like, I got it. Like, this thing's figured out. Like, yeah, I'm doing good. Right? I think we all look at like the channels that are really blowing up, the channels that are really reaching people, changing their lives, tons of views, subscribers, fame, popularity, money, whatever it is that we're looking at. And we say like, why am I not at that level? Why am I? And we all have different unique things going on. So I think it's impossible to compare ourselves. I worked with one guy actually who was in the same situation where he was, I think he had about a million subscribers, but he was getting millions of views per video. And on the outside, when I first looked at this channel, like something weird is going on here because he does not have the engagement that would suggest this is all coming from organic traffic. But I knew there must be something weird happening behind the scenes. Like maybe he's paying to promote all this content. Turns out he actually has a very popular app, and he includes his videos inside of his app. And so all the comments and conversation and everything are actually happening from embedded views inside his mobile app. And I'm like, oh, okay, well there you go. So sometimes there's like things you just wouldn't know right off the surface unless you actually talk and work with these people. Then you can kind of see behind the scenes of like, oh, okay, well, they do have something different going on than I have, and so it's not always a fair comparison. But we do typically compare ourselves to people who are doing better, and I think that's just kind of, that's just one of the things that we do, and I think that maybe we should stop doing that and instead start comparing ourselves with how we're doing. Can we compete with ourselves? Can we do better this month than we did last month? This quarter better than last quarter? This year better than last year? And just kind of see the trends of what's happening and changing on our channel. Can you guys hear all that screaming? That is the stuff the live audience gets. Hold on. All right, there's the fun stuff. Where were we? On my channel, I have the opposite effect pretty big time. Almost 500,000 subscribers, 10-ish thousand views per video. And in my case, what's unique with what I'm doing is that there's a high turnover in the creator audience, right? There's a lot of people who start creating because they get really, they look at some of their favorite creators and like, oh, I can make videos like that. Oh, I can play a video game like that. Oh, I have a family that's pretty awesome. I can make vlogs like that. And they think that, oh, that looks easy. I should do that. And they try. And I'm glad people try. But they quickly find out along the way that is not as easy as it looks, right? It's a lot more difficult, a lot more work to start gaining traction. And so what happens in my audience is a lot of people start, and then they subscribe to channels like mine, and then within a few weeks, sometimes a few months, sometimes a year, they just like, oh, I'm not unsubscribing because I still kind of want to do that one day, but I can't, I just can't keep up with it. It's way more work than I expected it to be, and so they just kind of give up. They don't unsub, but they're not really actively in my target audience anymore. They haven't uploaded for a while, haven't produced content for a while. And so there's just like a high churn in my audience. That is similar to people who have passive income type of channels, and a lot of those people are who like want a big reward but don't really want to put the big work in that it requires to get the big reward, right? And so it's not just my channel. A lot of people in my space have the same issue. I see it on the revenue side, the business side, in terms of clientele as well. And having worked directly with YouTube on some projects and things too, I've seen that that's kind of the case for kind of the whole business as a whole. So I don't think there's anything I'm doing wrong necessarily. I don't feel like it's my job to kind of force people to keep going or to make them feel super motivated. It's my job for those of you who are motivated, who are committed, and are in this for the long run, even if it's not easy right up front. It's my job to give you guys the tools and the resources you need to keep going. So that's how I see it. but your channel might be totally different. Okay, so we can't really do a fair apples to apples comparison all the time. Now, I think before we kind of dive on to some of the elements things that we can do that will make it easier for people to stay on board longer term, I think it's maybe a little bit helpful to understand that also there's this element where educational channels tend to perform differently on YouTube than entertainment channels. When people come to entertainment channels, it's typical to see a higher subscriber to view ratio because these people are coming back looking like they don't even necessarily care what the next piece of content is about. I mean, they do, but it's as long as it's like the story keeps progressing, or the family keeps doing something fun, or the gamer keeps going along with the jokes and the fun and the hangout feel that person's creating, like whatever, those entertainment channels tend to do a little bit better versus an educational channel like mine, where we're teaching people things. People just kind of tend to pick and choose. Like, I'll subscribe because the guy's got some helpful stuff, but then I'll just kind of wait and see if something comes along that is actually helpful for me. Is this relevant to what I'm working on? Is this relevant to my challenges that I'm facing? And so it could be another 10 videos before I publish a video that you would feel like is relevant and helpful for you, and then you maybe click on that one. Although by that time in YouTube, they probably have sensed that you're no longer interested, and so that's why it's important for me to have an email list and other things too, because I wouldn't be naturally surfacing my content to you as much as something as other people that you're watching more regularly. So I know that dynamic's there. I hope maybe now you know that dynamic's there. If you have an educational channel, it's just kind of part of what goes along the territory. And so what we have to start doing to get this subscriber to view ratio higher, what we have to start doing now for entertainment or educational channels to get them to perform well, we need to start building a relational value. People start watching because they want the content value, which is, what are you going to teach me? Or how are you going to make me kind of pass the time or escape from reality, or like whatever? Like, what's the story that you're saying in an entertainment channel? What's the story that you're sharing that's really going to keep me engaged and want to keep coming back and watching what happens next in the story? Versus the educational, it's like, how do we get people to start caring not just about the content that we're producing, but also about us as creators? Or if you're not a personality, your company or your business as a brand, what gets people to start caring about that? Because when people start caring not just about the information, but also about the character and about the person and the personality, and that relational value starts to build, they'll be far more likely to come back and keep watching your content than if they're just watching you just for the hard, cold, dirty facts, right? And like nothing else. And so this is actually there are some things we can do to intentionally start getting people to care more, to build that relational value. I want to go through 5 of them here with you guys today, and then we will dive into some of your questions here and talk about those of you guys who are in the live stream here. But the first thing that I think needs to happen, and you guys hear me talk about this a lot, and I think we should probably be doing this more than we do, which is that we really need to communicate our value proposition for our channel. This isn't just like, well, a lot of times creators, like, they tell people what they do, but they don't really tell people why they do it. We're just kind of focusing just on the head level. We say, hey guys, subscribe to my channel because we got daily family vlogs. See you guys next one. Or because I stream Let's Plays, or because I do comedy skits, or because I teach you how to make your garden better, or how to keep your house clean, or whatever. Like, we just tell people what we do, and which is good, and we should do that. But we're only keeping that relationship on a cognitive head level so as long as we only tell people what we're doing. What we need to start doing is tell people what we're doing because they need that context, but also then tell them why we're doing it. Not just what do we do, but why does it matter? And that starts moving it to a heart level, to an emotional level. That starts eliciting in a human emotional response when we tell people not just what we're doing, but why we're doing it. So here at Video Creators, I've already told you guys in the beginning, like, this is what we're doing is we teach you how to master YouTube. Why? So that you can reach people and change their lives, right? That's kind of what we're going here. Or guys, in an entertainment context, hey, we do family vlogs about our family story. That's the what. And then the why could be anything. It could be to encourage those of you who are struggling, to encourage those of you who feel like you're overwhelmed at home, or overwhelmed moms or whatever, right? Like just throw in like, what's the why behind it? Because that's what people actually care about. The thing, like the mission or the value, the thing that's really going to connect with their story and their life. That's where you're going to start making that human connection. So communicate that value proposition in everywhere you can. Your channel, and your channel art, your header image, and your channel trailer, and those sections below your channel and your channel trailer, and all of your videos. Maybe that 3 to 5 second branded intro. Use that as an opportunity to pitch the what and the why of your value proposition. Talk about it in each of your videos. Just keep coming back to it so it's clear. People know not just what you do, but also why you're doing it, and that will start to build an emotional connection. Number 2 is you also need to have a very specific target audience. And having a specific target audience makes that person feel like that content is for them because you're crafting the content specifically for them, right? So when you have a very specific target audience in mind, you're more likely to make someone in that audience feel like, oh, like where have you been all my life? Yes, I'm subscribing, and they're more likely to come back and keep watching because you've eliminated a lot of other competition by making that audience very specific. You're crafting content specifically and exactly for them, and so you're more likely to get a human emotional connection with those people who are like, I need to keep coming back to this content because this is exactly for me. Number 3, guys, this is important. A lot of people don't do this, is I think you really need to be telling more about your backstory. In order for us to really start caring more about creators that we're watching or brands that we follow or purchase from, we need to have some context about where did you come from? How did you get here? Why are you doing this? Because the story, again, brings that human element into the brand. It helps us understand the fuller meaning and the context of what this brand is all about. We know Apple, Steve Jobs' story, or Bill Gates' story with Microsoft. A lot of these big brands, who knows the creation story, the backstory of Circuit City? Nobody, right? And they're gone. Some of these brands can last a little while and you can make a big splash, but for long-term, like longevity in terms of getting people to really care about your brand, is who is this for? Why should they care? That's the value proposition, target audience. And then where did you come from? And I think there's a lot of us have a lot of natural opportunity for us to just share a little bit about our backstory, not the full thing necessarily, and not always like the same thing like it's on a script, but there's probably opportunities where we can just throw in little nuggets about like, oh yeah, that happened and that reminds me of this, or when I was, in high school, this happened. You think of like some of the top channels on YouTube, their backstory, the ones that have grown to 10 million plus subscribers. Rhett and Link, for example. If you guys watch Rhett and Link, everyone who watches Rhett and Link knows that they were best friends since first grade and that they started a video production company together doing commercials and have grown this into like a YouTube thing now. And so, I mean, there's a lot more to the story that their followers will know, but that's kind of the basic gist of it. Or Shay Carl, one of the original first family vloggers ever on YouTube, 5 million subscribers. His story, he talks about all the times, like, guys, I'm so grateful for what I have here on YouTube because I remember what it was like when I was installing granite counters for a living, and like I hated it. And then one night I stayed up all night watching YouTube, and I didn't realize in the morning that it was the sun was coming up, and I had just spent all night on YouTube without even feeling like 3 minutes went by. And so, like, these people that we know, like, and trust on YouTube, we know some of their story. So whatever that looks like for you to throw in some of your backstory whenever it makes sense, I think that is appropriate to do so. I think a lot of you guys have heard my backstory, but it is, I got started very, very early days of YouTube, 2006, because I was dating a girl. I was in graduate school halfway across the country from my family, and I wanted a way of introducing her to my family back home. So we just started making little videos together that today would be known as vlogs, but back then that wasn't a word. And we would just put them up on YouTube, and I'd send them to my family, and then other people started watching, and I was trying to figure out where are they coming from, why are they watching, because these videos aren't for you, what's going on. And that's how I got kind of involved on the industry side of YouTube pretty quickly, It was very early days of trying to figure out, how does YouTube work? How do people find our content? What keeps them coming back? And working with other creators then from the very beginning to just help them do the same. And now I'm doing it with you. So a little bit about my backstory. Number 4 is, I think you also, another thing that builds connection with people, it keeps them coming back, is you need to share a belief, a creed of some kind. What do you believe? Why, not just why does this matter, but what does this mean to you? And I've shared with you guys my belief, which is to reach people and change their lives. But maybe what a lot of you guys don't know is that before YouTube, I was a youth and family worker for 12 years. And I loved it because I just loved seeing relationships restored between parents and between teenagers and seeing them grow together. And I loved seeing that happen. And around that time on YouTube, we're talking like 2008 or so, our family, well, by that time I had married my girlfriend and we had several kids together, and we were still making family videos, although it wasn't just for our families anymore at that point, because we were reaching around 1 million people a month. And we were seeing the same amount of like life change and people sending us like comments and feedback from what we were doing on our family's channel. The same amount of life impact was happening there through YouTube as we were seeing happen through my real job as a youth and family worker. I still remember today some of these stories, which were, like I remember one girl wrote us and said, my mom abandoned our family when I was young. I didn't grow up with a mother, and I don't really know what a mom is supposed to do or a wife, what that was supposed to look like. But I've been watching you guys for a few years, and I'm getting married next month. And because of your channel, I feel like I have an idea of how to be a good mom and a good wife. So thank you. And we're like, oh, that happened because of our channel. We had we were targeting young moms at that time, specifically with that channel. We still are to some extent. But one mom wrote and said, we just got married. I just got married 2 months ago. Already struggling in my marriage. I don't know if we're going to make it. But then I saw that video of you and your wife talking about how you're learning to love each other better. And I shared that video with my husband. We watched it together. We talked about it. And we have hope again for our marriage. I just want to say thank you. Right? And then like people who didn't commit suicide because of videos that we have made. And people who have come off of disability and felt like they had dignity in the world because they're video creators, because they grew their channel to full-time incomes and got off disability. And people who were dyslexic and had a hard time reading and writing, but because their channels were growing, they were forced then to be able to have to read comments and reply to comments. And that forced them to be able to read and write, and these people's lives are just changing. And I love it. That's why, like, for me, this isn't like Master YouTube, make more money, Master YouTube, feel more popular. This is like, I saw at that time, I was like, there is an opportunity to reach people and change their lives. I might be able to reach a few million people and have some sort of impact. That's great. But what if I could influence the influencers? What if I could impact the people who are also making an impact? What if I could help them spread their message and reach more people, impact more people's lives? Like, what kind of impact could I have in the world through all these other people who are also doing it? Not that it would ever come back to me and anyone ever know that, but I genuinely hope that because of what we're doing here, video creators, that you guys are reaching more people, changing more lives, and that together we're all making the world a better place, hopefully, for a lot of people. And so that's my belief. That's what my creed. And so when I share those stories with you guys, a little bit more about the backstory, but it starts, hopefully, as you're listening to this, you may pay attention. Does that help you start being like, if you share that belief with me, do you connect with me a little bit more than you did before? Are you a little bit more likely now to come back and listen to another podcast episode, or come back and watch another live stream, or watch another video? Not to say that you're going to come back and watch every single one, because a lot of us are busy, and this is an educational channel, so not every video is equally as valuable to everybody. But that having that shared belief makes it more likely that you guys feel a little bit more of a connection. And I think you guys should do that too, because I've said this before, I'll say it again because it's totally true, that the strongest communities, online and offline, they don't actually revolve around common interests. Like a lot of people think they do. Like, hey, we both like video games, so anyone who likes a video game should subscribe to my channel. It actually revolves around shared beliefs. The strongest communities always revolve around shared beliefs. So if you want a strong community on your channel, make it revolve around a belief, a creed. Now, I know that sounds a little bit intimidating and a little bit maybe makes you a little bit nervous because you're like, well, but what about all the people I'm possibly eliminating? I'm like, yes, the more competition you eliminate, the better, right? Now, it doesn't necessarily make your audience, like some people are afraid it's going to make their audience too small. And that's not usually the case. There's more people who probably believe what you believe than, than maybe you think you do. Although in my case, if I wanted to grow the biggest YouTube educational channel, I would be like, master YouTube, make more money, right? Or master YouTube, feel more popular. If I'm going after the younger audience of creators wants popularity, the older audience of creators wants money. So I could go after those two things. But I think those are amazing things and useful things that we actually need to pursue. But I see those things as tools, right? Those are tools we use to reach people and change their lives. I believe that if your goal is actually fame, popularity, and money, those things could actually destroy your life. But if you use those things to reach more people and change their lives, it benefits everyone. So I keep throwing in all these beliefs. You guys are hearing me share like all these different beliefs that I have about kind of what's going on. And I think you guys need to have beliefs in you too. Make people choose. Am I in or out? Do I believe this or do I not believe this? Not in like a bullying type of way or an arrogant type of way, but just like, this is who I am. This is what I believe. And those of you who believe this with me, I would love for you to join me on this journey. And that will create a deeper human connection with people as well. Number 5, and this is so important, you guys. This is because this is where YouTube's heading, in my opinion. The next 3 to 4 years, we're all going to be needing to focus on this. And it's a hard skill to learn, so I highly recommend you start now. And that is, you need to focus on learning to tell a meaningful story. A good, meaningful story. It's so much harder than I expected to tell a good story, because we tell stories all the time, right? We hang out with people, with friends. What do? We tell stories about our day, about our life, things we're working on. And those types of stories are great. But on YouTube, the channels that I see just kind of blowing up and doing really well are no longer the channels that have just kind of figured out what types of tags to use. And they just haven't figured out, if how to properly light their set and what audio equipment to use and things like that. All that's important, but none of that matters, I think, in the next 2 to 3 years if you can't tell a story that means something to someone. And that implies for those of us who are educational channels as well. Here at Video Creators, I'm working on a series right now called Creator Stories. I've done one pilot and a few kind of tests and examples, and it's clear to me every single time I do something that's more narrative-based, I get twice the watch time and quadruple the engagement, with a caveat of if I tell the story well. If I don't tell the story well, then it actually has the opposite effect than a normal video, and it actually does much more poorly. So instead of me doing around 10,000 views on a video, instead it's doing like 2,000. So you have to tell a story, but you have to tell it well. It needs to have meaning to people. It needs to hold their attention and create question marks in their head. Like, oh, what happens here? Or oh yeah, I'm invested in the story. There's high stakes involved here that this doesn't get resolved in my mind. I'm just I can't live with that tension, right? And so we've seen this already happening. Casey Neistat was one of these guys who started just pursuing titles and thumbnails were important to him. But at the end of the day, he was just telling really good stories, and people started coming back watching every video, not as much because of the title and the thumbnail were super awesome, but because people started loving him. And what are we going to learn from you today and their story? Because he was doing a 3-act structure, 3-act story in every single vlog. Peter McKinnon, same deal. We see him doing it. Yes Theory, Shane Dawson. I don't know if you guys follow Shane Dawson. He was back on YouTube active when I first started as well, back in the early days, 2007. I started in 2006, but I think he jumped on in 2007. And his channel back then is completely different. It's gone through many different not revisions, that's too weak of a word, total overhauls of new content, of different approaches, different styles. And it was always kind of based on narrative stuff anyway. He was doing skits back in the day. And now he's kind of doing conspiracy theories, but in a documentary type of way. And so we've seen him grow not just through all the comedy skits and things that he did growing up back in the day, but even taking that story skill and taking it to the 10th level now. And 40-minute mini documentary videos that are just blowing up and doing huge because of the story. And so I would recommend that you guys really start learning how to do this. I don't think it's I think you can still grow today without learning storytelling. But if you want to still be a viable channel, in the next 2 to 3 years. How do you tell a story about a character who wants something, overcomes conflict to get it, and is transformed by the process? That's, in Western society, those are the stories that we love. The character is different at the end of the story because of the conflict than they were at the beginning of the story when they first started. And so how do you guys do that? How do you tell a story about a character who wants something, overcomes conflict to get it, and is transformed by the process? I think even in educational content, there's a natural progression there that we can integrate, because we are teaching someone, a character who wants something, but there's conflict, and so they're coming to us on YouTube to overcome the conflict. And if they do overcome the conflict and the thing that you're teaching them how to overcome, how is their life different as a result of that? That's the story that you tell, even in educational content. And in that type of story, you actually become the guide, the hero's guide. So it's like you're the Gandalf, or you're the Obi-Wan Kenobi, or the Yoda, or whatever, right? You're the one who's equipping the hero with the sword that they're going to use to go defeat their conflict, even in tutorial-based how-to educational content. So all these principles apply. You might need to chew on that for a little while. I've been going. If you guys have followed my channel and been listening to me talk about this for a while, you've heard me say that I've been hiring storytelling coaches, reading storytelling books. I've been going to storytelling workshops, because I really do believe that's kind of where YouTube's going in the next 2 to 3 years. So I highly recommend you guys do that. And to kind of bring it back full circle to how does this help people stay engaged long term? Is because, one, we're kind of a little bit moving more towards the entertainment side of things. Not that those channels are any better, but it's mostly because those good, meaningful stories that connect with our audience, that builds that human connection. That builds that emotional connection that keeps people coming back and saying, I want more, and not just point like I want the information that you're communicating or sharing through your story, but because I just enjoy the story, and I feel like I have a little bit more of a connection to the creator and to the brand overall. So that's what we're going for here, guys. I have a series coming out next year called Creator Stories, which I mentioned, and that whole series is me flying out to other creators and telling their story in a way where I could just maybe do 3 points for this, or like I did here, 5 ways to keep your audience more engaged long term. But instead, I'm hiring a film crew. We're doing story meetings. We're storyboarding the whole thing. We have a shot list planned out, and we are not just. I made my first main attempt at delivering educational content and within the context of a narrative, so that by the end you get to these creator stories, not only do you get to know another creator, but they're telling a story. They're not actually just telling their story. They're actually telling your story as the viewer. And you feel like that hero in terms of the story structure, you're identifying with that hero. And you're thinking, yes, me too. I have that problem too. I have that struggle too. How did you overcome it? And we're telling that story. So by the time you get to the end, you're like, whoa, like not only do I know what I need to do, like next steps I need to take now, but I actually believe that those are the right steps to take. I actually see how high the stakes are if I don't take them. And I believe that you'll be far more likely to actually take those steps and implement them on your channel and actually get the results that you want, because a story has this potential to change someone's belief, not just like what they understand in terms of like step 1, step 2, step 3, but it changes what you believe about step 1, 2, and 3, so that you actually go and implement it. So I'm really excited to launch that. We've got 5 episodes shot. I still have 5 more to do, and they each take like a month to produce. So that's why it's gonna be a 10-episode season launching in 2019, and then after that, I'm just gonna evaluate the whole thing, because there's a lot of work. But I'm excited to do it, because I really believe that for me, it's a skill I just want to learn, but I do believe that that's what's going to make a big difference in keeping people on board long term. So let's jump into some of your questions here. Number 1, thank you, Modern Day Family Man, for becoming a new member of our channel. I really appreciate that. You guys who are members here, if you're listening to the podcast, there's a link in the show notes you can tap on, or any of you guys who are watching here, there's also a link down in the description, or just click that join button. and a lot of new perks and rewards for you guys, just as a thank you for your support and allowing me to continue to hang out with you and hopefully keep creating content that encourages you and helps you along your creator journey. One of the things I got coming up for those people is I've got every month, the next few months, I have my full length sessions of where I teach at others workshops and other conferences. Instead of you having to pay all the money to go out, I just record my session and then I make that whole session freely available for those of you guys who are members. So I got a few of those coming. They're being edited right now, and those full 45, 50-minute sessions on will be available for you guys, as well as many other things, call-in shows and stuff where we can talk about your things, your channels and things as well. So thank you, Modern Daily Family Man. He says, 99% of my views are from non-subscribers. Only 1% of my views are from subscribers. How do I get that number up from subscribers? You know, depending on what your goals are, I actually think that's a pretty healthy place to be. I know a lot of people don't like that. They're like, hey, how do I get more of my subscribers engaged? I mean, we just talked about 5 different ways here that you should be doing that could potentially help. But overall, though, I like it when I get a lot of non-subscribed viewers, because that means my videos are constantly being surfaced to people who are not yet subscribed to my channel. That means my channel doing a good job at bringing new people in. If you have 100% subscriber views and 0% non-subs, then your channel is not going to grow at all. You're just going to have people unsubscribing. You're just going to go down. Or even if it's like 50-50, I don't even personally like that too much, because that channel tends to be a little bit too volatile for my taste, because you have to keep publishing content to keep those viewers engaged, you know, and to keep your views up so that your revenue stays up or your business keeps generating sales or whatever it is. Like, you just got, it's a churn, it's a grind. You got to keep publishing to keep those people engaged. And I tend to prefer the channels where, like yours, 90% of your views are coming from non-subscribers. I think is a healthy, maybe 1%, you know, I mean, I had to look at your channel to see exactly what's going on there, but if you can have primarily non-sub views, that's a great thing in my opinion, because it just shows people are coming and watching your videos who aren't yet subscribed. Culinary Cookhouse, thank you for the $5 super chat. Thank you for the 5 tips. This helps a lot. You're welcome. So, Haunted Road Media. Hey, Mike. Good to see you. How deep into the why should we go? I could say educate and help, but that still seems rather surface level. I do agree, Mike. I do think it's a little bit surface level. I think you should educate and help doesn't really make you stand out. It's too generic. I just go one step further. My channel is here to educate and help you. What? Or we educate and help so that, or in order to, or because, like, what's the actual reward that the viewer gets by hanging out and listening to your educational content and the help that you're providing there? That's what you need to focus on. Patty, thank you, Patty Broussard, for being a member and supporting this community. Do you think it's a good idea to make a separate video just about your backstory and your why, instead of putting it in the beginning or end of a normal video? I think that is something you could do. Yeah, Patty. And if you guys remember, it's still big. It used to be a lot bigger, but the Draw My Life series, where people were going, sitting down and just drawing stick figures and sharing their life story. If you haven't seen it, just Google or search YouTube for Draw My Life. You'll see lots of examples. Those videos get massive views, even breaking outside of channels like subscriber audiences, not because the drawings are super amazing, not because the story is like always told in an extremely gripping way, but because we connect with people. Like, people connect with people. We connect with faces. And when people start telling their story like that, it starts creating a human connection. And so I do think that it would be a good idea to have a video on your channel that just tells your story. And I think a natural place to do that is in your channel trailer, because the only people who are really seeing your channel trailer are people who are not yet subscribed to you. So you don't have to tell a full story, but you could just throw in like little parts of it, little pieces of your backstory that make it easy for people to quickly kind of gravitate towards what you're doing, and just to give them enough context. You don't have to fill in all the details. You can just kind of hit on different aspects of it in other parts of your videos. on other things. Steamcraft, do you think lower thirds and other design elements are essential to audience engagement? No, I don't think they're essential. I think they could be helpful in terms of providing some background information. You know, it's like, for example, last week I did a session with a guy who has a music channel, he and his wife, and his channel is all about music theory. And when I first click on the video, you know, you think of music theory, you're probably thinking like Carnegie Hall or something, and just covered in tattoos, and never once in the video like mentioned the tattoos. He had a lower third about how he loves tea, like a tea drinker. But I was like, dude, like the question in my mind is like, what's up with all the tattoos? Like, there's a backstory here. How did you get covered literally from the bottom of your chin to your toes in tattoos? Like, you just kind of gloss it over. So it's like, you should have something, at least in that lower third, that kind of just teases something about your backstory. Like, are you a rock star that I don't know about? I don't know. Like, just put something there that like gives us some meaning and context to that. So you can use those design elements to maybe fill people in, but you don't necessarily, I don't know that they make a huge difference just because you started adding a lower third. Of course, you can always test it because, you know, those things can make a difference, and make some groups in your analytics and start testing them side by side and see how they do. And then In Casa Con Patty says, hi, Tim. My subscribers are from all over the world. How do I engage them if I don't speak their language? That's a good question. I mean, so I'm not familiar with your content, obviously, but if you have content that's, you know, has no like spoken word to it, and it's just all music, and maybe like just visuals or something like that, I think it's probably going to be a little bit harder to grow that human connection. But I think even then you could still do the same thing. If people recognize your logo, your brand, or your face or whatever, obviously you have some sort of visuals going on in the video, and you can still tell some sort of story just with visuals, the same way you tell any other story or communicate any other topic. So yeah, I think you can still do it. I think it's just kind of what works with your audience and your channel, and what makes sense for you, and what you're trying to do. And I think your creativity is kind of the limit there, but I think it's important to kind of find ways to integrate that in there. So, and Cube Studio, thank you for the super chat. Thanks for all the help, and you're welcome. Glad to help. Zombie Nature, if your videos could be in several categories like science, education, entertainment, etc., would you get more exposure if you categorize them as entertainment instead of a different category? No, that doesn't have anything to do with exposure. In my opinion, that feature is mostly left over from the old days of YouTube, and I don't think the categories make a difference. So, no, don't worry about it. I am really looking forward to hearing the rest of you guys who are listening to the podcast recording of this, what your thoughts are. I'd love for you to tweet me at Tim Schmoyer, and especially if you're listening to the podcast, leave a review on iTunes. Give us a rating. It really does help us out and helps bring our podcast to other people, and it helps to get more exposure. So thank you for leaving us a review and give us some feedback. I do read through those and really appreciate everything that you guys say that I take and try to make this content more valuable for you guys. If you're listening also to the podcast, make sure you hang out with us on Mondays, 2 p.m. Eastern time. Got a great audience of people here, hundreds of creators, all like helping each other in the chat, serving each other, answering questions for each other, encouraging each other. We'd love to have you become a part of that. And thank you, Laura, for producing this and grabbing everyone's questions and hanging out. And all of you who are members and supporting this, making it possible. I got some great content for you, including every week I give you bonus stories about things that are changing and happening in the online video space, so that you can stay on top of all the big changes, so that you can continue to reach people and change their lives as effectively as possible. I do have a few stories to share with you guys, so I will be posting them on the community tab here for members only here later today, so you guys will get those. So thank you again, all of you, Be Adventure Partners and Patty Burchard, and all of you guys who are here in the chat, who are part of that community. Really appreciate you guys. And thanks for hanging out, and we will see you guys again next Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, or Tuesday if you're listening to the podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify. We'll see you guys then. Thanks for hanging out. Bye.